Hello, peeps. Welcome to Tiffany's interview series. Today, I have the lovely Tim Toma here with me. Hello, Tim.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Thank you so much for joining me. As you can tell, Tim is all the way over from, I usually say Oklahoma, but it is actually
Ohio.
Ohio. And to me,
Yeah.
it's like one and the same, even though America's really big and it's probably
Yeah.
what would it be? A couple of days drive between Oklahoma and Ohio?
Yeah, it probably would take a couple of days to get there. Yeah, so
It's just a couple of Englands in between, well, Britons in between. And you've got snow over there, huh?
yeah, it's unusual this time of year to have it this late. Usually, we might get some sometimes in early April, but now we're in the middle of April and it's still snowing. So that's a little bit unusual. So, but in Cleveland, anything can happen. So
Okay, anything can happen, right?
yeah,
I like
yep.
that. That
Yeah,
sounds
they say if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, it'll change.
Oh, well, that's good. They say that about England as well. We're supposed to have a scorcher this week, but that
Uh,
basically means Thursday. We've got like just
yeah.
one sun Thursday. That's a scorcher week, apparently. So anyway, we've got more interesting things to talk to you guys about than the weather. We'll start with, Tim's had quite an interesting journey, and I've asked him to come and share it with you guys because I know that you guys there may well just, it's really hard to kind of come in and do something that you don't know that is going to be like. And so I've asked my graduate students from the Transformational Truth of Tarot to come and share their transformations, their journeys. Some of them have been quite external and some of them have been quite internal. And internal is just as powerful. I mean, Tim, what is it that you do for a living again?
I'm an attorney.
Yeah, an attorney. And, through my experience, what I noticed was a lot of people in the law came to me when I was doing tarot readings. And then also when I started doing the Transformational Truth of Tarot, which is a 6-month-long transformational program and where you learn the tarot. And I found that quite fascinating. Like, I've taken quite a interest in why is it that what you would think is very straight kind of profession that's very logical and very grounded and very has to be very together, was quite interested in something that maybe isn't seen that way at all. And I know that you guys need to have an amazing intuition to read between the lines as well. But also what I found out was that there was usually something with people in the legal field where they've been trained to be like, there's no room for error kind of thing. It's like the responsibility is so big and so strong that actually what happens is that it's like where they're serving everybody else's freedom. It's a bit like the mechanic's car is always the worst one in the garage. It's like their freedom can be severely impacted, whether that's from working hours or having to put on such a polished front that they even forget who they are at times, or they don't know, they just lose touch with themselves in a way. And so, when you came my way, I was like, oh, fantastic. It's someone who I feel like I could really help on that level. And I just really love you to just say, how you came across, the course and why you wanted to do it, really, what pulled you in.
Yeah, well, it's kind of it was an interesting journey in and of itself, just to come to the journey, for me anyway. And I think you're right about your impressions about the legal profession, and it is interesting that there would be kind of this interest in kind of the tarot and the mysteries of that. And in a lot of ways, I think in the legal profession, when we're dealing with issues of justice and things like that, where it's like the lawyers and the judge go back behind into the chambers and talk about the intricacies of the case. Like we have this like kind of secret knowledge almost, and I think the tarot kind of lends itself to that. I mean, there's a mastery there, there's a skill there that you develop, but it's in a lot of ways though it's distinctly different too, though, is that in where legal profession is very much of a thought, logical, argumentative type of a thing. The tarot, it's more of an intuitive thing, and what you feel. And actually, that was one of the obstacles I think I had to overcome early on in the journey was, and I'm still working on, is that tendency to overthink. I think one of the benefits that I've had is that I'm learning more to learn and to listen to my intuition in particular, and what sounds as signs that the universe or God or whoever might be sending over to me, as opposed to trying to figure it all out and put it into places, and just kind of stepping back and seeing how things fit into place, on their own. So.
Okay. And what benefits would you say that's had for you?
The biggest benefit is a lot more peace of mind and feeling a lot more comfortable with myself.
Right.
And being able to, and trusting myself and trusting my own intuition a lot more, and not overthinking things, and not trying to overanalyze things and figure everything out and do it all on my own. It's been a great, really, overall, a big relief for me in terms of taking a lot of burdens off of my shoulders, and also the ability, I think, to accept other people, accept other viewpoints, to appreciate those, and to try and learn and understand. And even if I may not particularly agree with everything, is that that's okay. I can still learn from that, and it may, and I can still be open to, potentially changing my viewpoints. And it's not this dogmatic, this is the right way or that's the wrong way. We all can see things a little bit differently and learn from each other.
That's fantastic. And so it sounds like, you've had a lot of benefits around your peace of mind and feeling comfortable with who you are, and that, you don't have to be different to who you are or more than who you are. And actually that can be quite a block and make life quite hard. And actually it works a lot easier and feels a lot better, if we can just get to that place of acceptance of ourselves, acceptance of our intuition, acceptance of another person. So it sounds like there's been some really great benefits for you in terms of the professional front. Was that why you came on? You say you had a journey to get to this journey of the transformational truth of tarot.
Yeah, it actually was over the course of probably 2 or 3 years. I came from a fairly rigid fundamentalist religious background, and started to really explore on my own some different things. I began to draw some conclusions theologically that I disagreed with, in terms of some of the beliefs of the religion that I was involved with, and really had a break there with the church community that I was involved with, which actually even caused some discord, even within my own family, and it's still a challenge there. But really that was the start there of, and then as I started on that journey, just some books that I encountered along the way, in particular, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz was, incredibly impactful in my life, and just appreciating how much of what we believe or we think we believe are thoughts and things that, other people, society, family, parents have kind of dumped on us. And we've bought into that, not even knowing that we're buying into it. And we think these are our own beliefs, and they're really not. And just, discovering through that book, then say, hey, I can make up my own mind about, who I am, what I believe, and what I want to be, and what I want to do in life. So that kind of led me on to, greater journey. And the internet has been a great resource because, there's so much out there, and, some of it's better than others, and you have to filter through and search. And, but I remember seeing, I think one of your posts on, was it Finer Minds, I believe?
Yeah.
It was on the transformational. And it said, that looked interesting. And I remembered, having a tarot reading many, many years earlier when I was quite young, and and really kind of being fascinated by it in a lot of ways. But then, kind of putting it aside, based on, from the religious structure that I was in, that was kind of taboo. You don't even go there, and it's like, why not? So now having found, this new freedom, and then, and then kind of the synchronicity, kind of how things fall together. When the student's ready, the teacher will come. So I remember reading that article, and it really impacted me. As I say, I really, see the value in this, and it was a distinctly different approach. I even, before then I'd had a couple of other readings on the tarot, and even then it was still more of, I think, not to be critical of the other readers, but more of a analytical, okay, this is what this card means, that's what this card means, as opposed to what I really appreciate about your program is that, that kind of intuitive, approach to the cards, and that living approach to the cards and the symbolism that they represent, and how it represents the changes that we go through our own lives. So that really appealed to me, and so I reached out, and I think connected with you on Skype, and we had a few interviews, and decided to make the commitment and jump onto the Transformational Truth course.
I'm so pleased you did. And it is a journey, isn't it? I mean, so you'd had a tarot reading like years and years ago, and then you'd got into a fundamentalist religion, and then over the period of about 3 years, you'd done your own researches and your own studies. And the tarot also does this, it appears in our life quite often, and then it goes, and then it comes back again. It's like we don't choose it, it chooses us. It shows up, it goes away, it comes back again. And it's like, damn you, why did you kind of wait until I'd got into a fundamentalist religion, to kind of do that? But it sounds like, you really, it's on a divine timing level, it was obviously a very perfect time for you. And so you'd gone through this search, and you've really got to this place where it's quite big, isn't it, to be in that type of, I would say, high priest structure, which is again a bit like justice. It's all very kind of structured and boundaried, and that doesn't really move. And then going into the high priestess journey of it's all fluid and the opposite, and you were just like going into that high priestess journey, going into your own dark night of the soul by the sounds of it, and realizing that it didn't fit. But then your whole life in terms of the structure on the outside is very structured, is that the right word? And then you go through this thing where you're like, I don't fit in that structure. I mean, how did that, how was that for you?
Yeah, well, it was really, and I think it's something that I probably sensed deep down all along. But I think there's a very much of a fear-based belief system in at least what I was involved with. And so I always felt, I think I always felt that there was more, at least there for me. And it is a very rigid, it's a very structured type of an environment. And quite frankly, it's been a bit of a shock to those around me, to those closest to me, because as I've put it, I'm now off the plantation. And that can be a very fearful thing to those who are still on the plantation and think that that's their security.
Yeah.
And I had a discussion one time with my wife, who's still very much involved, in the fundamentalist religious background. And I said to her, I said, it's like I've been in a fishbowl most of my life, and it's like now I'm in the ocean. I said, I'm not getting back into the fishbowl. It's happening. And it's interesting though, and we've talked, I know one-on-one a lot, about our I'm a Sagittarius, I'm a wanderer, I'm a searcher, and she's a Taurus, she's into stability. And I remember her commenting back and said, but it's a nice fishbowl. And it was like, are you crazy? It's a fish. I don't care if it's the nicest fishbowl in the world. It's a fishbowl. It doesn't matter. And I know that, you're swimming in the ocean. It's like, oh, well, what if, and all, it's like, okay, so there's sharks in the ocean. Watch out, you don't have to watch out. And and that fishbowl may be very right for some people.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
That's also something you've learned, isn't it, along the way, is that, you've had to. I mean, you're still in this world, and you had to find a way to be comfortable with yourself and comfortable in that world. And so, what you were saying earlier about getting to that place of I'm okay, Jack, you're okay, Jack, is something you've had a real crash course in, really, haven't you? Intensely.
Yeah, that's been, I mean, it's really been, forced upon me in a sense that, it's not, a situation where I can say, okay, and ride off into the sunset and, grab my banjo and my Jeep and, go to Alaska or something like that. That's practically not a feasible option for me, nor is it, I think, what would be appropriate for me. I think one of the things, and I've noticed it, and I think you had it as, I don't know if it was your cover or whatever, but it's kind of bloom where you were planted. You had as a cover photo, and that really, I was like, oh wow, and that's, I think, really what, and whatever your conception might be of God or the universe, I think that's part of what the purpose is. Is that I'm, supposed to be me, but even within this environment that might be a little bit challenging or hostile to that. And that's where really, this course has also been very, helpful for me, is that, there is the support there too, the community there that's, I don't feel, it would have been impossible, virtually impossible for me to do it, I think, on my own without having the support of the group.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine that it would be, I think this way of being can be hard enough, even when you're you don't have the type of life that maybe represses it so much. So, for instance, my background is fairly liberal, and this stuff was really kind of normal. On one hand, it was swept under the table and a little bit taboo, and on the other hand, it was really out there and in your face. So it was quite contradictory. I can't speak, you know what I mean? But it wasn't really opposed in any way, shape or form. And my mum's always been like one of my biggest fans and been really proud of what I do. And so then I had problems when I went out into the real world, and I'm still learning at 40 that not everybody thinks the way that I do. It's like my husband keeps telling me that, Tiffany, you don't edit. Because one of the things we do in the course, isn't it, is we don't edit. That's right. One of the things we practice, is not to edit. And he's like, Tiffany, you don't edit. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. And he's like, yeah, but not everybody thinks the way that you do. And it's been a wake-up call on that front. So I've almost come from the other side, and now it's like the bigger world, I'm realising, doesn't really understand who I am or what I do. And these are also why we're having to do these videos. Like you say, this way of reading is a different way of being. It's not just about learning the tarot, is it? What would you say that it is? Is it able to be put in words?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things I was thinking about, even as we were, preparing for the interview and stuff. Is that one of the real benefits that I've had is learning that it's not just the tarot. I mean, the tarot, quite simply, are just symbols.
Mm,
Okay, but those symbols are everywhere. It's really the intuition, it's that communication with the higher self, with God, with the universe, whatever that is. And the tarot is just one particular means of doing that. But once, as I've learned, as I've developed, a greater skill in doing that with the tarot, it's also opened it up so that I'm able to see that and do that within other realms as well. It might be a song that I hear, or a post that I see, or somebody, or a comment that somebody has made, and just recognizing that these aren't all just random isolated events, that it all does tie together, and that there's an ongoing communication there between me and the universe, and as I'm learning and as I'm growing, and as I'm seeing more and more, in the world that I'm about, that's around me, and how I interact with that. So, and for me, a lot of it is even like musically. I do enjoy
mm,
music a lot. I perform a little bit, as a hobby, and that's really one of the great ways of spiritual transformation for me, and just how much that's tied in to what the intuitions and the skills that I've learned through the tarot course is the uh, how they coincide has been remarkable,
mm, mm,
in seeing that. So
mm. Yeah, I mean, you've said some interesting things there about number one, you don't think that you would have been able to do this on your own without the group, and it is an incredible group, and I can imagine, that it'd be very difficult to do this type of work, this depth of work on your own. Now there are people that do this on their own. They just get the digital version and they do it on their own. But this really became an amazing course when I stopped doing one-to-ones on it, because people were like saying to me, I feel like I've taken the red pill and nobody else has. And when I actually put a group of people together, it was just like people were saying, oh my god, it's so amazing to find other people like me,
hmm yeah.
and there's a lot of connection in that. I think people do say that it's the best thing about the course is the fact that you have this journey with fellow journeymen. You're all kind of on it together, and like one falls down, the other one picks you up, and so on. It's like it, the tarot has a rhythm, and everybody's kind of in that rhythm, or that the journey kind of takes you along. It's almost like a wave, like you were saying, you were in the ocean. I think
hmm
it's a very good analogy of your journey, actually, when we think about it. The fishbowl and the ocean and the intuition and the music that you're talking about. And you were saying, I think, that this course for you has been very much about what you can apply to everything, and you picked up another important point as well, because people often ask me if I read, and I say no, as in reading for myself, because I don't need to, because I see it everywhere. And I think, that is another thing of the course. It's like you don't need to read, you just do, because you
hmm
realize that it's everywhere in the way that we learn it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just that ongoing dialogue that we have, with the universe, and it's in everything, and it's even for whatever. I'm not sure what it's saying, but that snow out there, is something there. But actually, it is. But to be honest with you, it is, even though it's a little bit, it's time to go. It is quite beautiful, that light coating of snow and stuff out there.
It's
But yeah, it is. It's everywhere and it's everything. So, and and really the group. I mean, I can honestly say that, yeah, I think some of the closest friends that I have on the planet are are people I know, exclusively through that group. I've never met them in person. It's been through Skypes and Storytells, but and through our weekly conferences and stuff that we have, and because you bare your soul, and that's one of the, and I know you've shared a lot how the tarot is a mirror. And when you're doing that as, say, a part of a Skype, it's also a window. I mean, you see, you can, it's interesting because you can be on a Skype session and, you could be talking about, all sorts of, superficial fluff to start it out. But man, as soon as you start, spreading those cards out and talking about that stuff, it's, it's deep, it's personal, it's real, because you're sharing each other's, heart and souls with each other. You really know what, each other, what you're going through. And you see things about yourself, you see things about the other person that, you're not just going to find out by having coffee at Starbucks,
No, that's right. And I had coffee at Starbucks. Like that. It's a very good point. You are bearing your heart and your soul. There is nowhere to hide. So all of that, like you say, superficial fluff, which is our armor, or sometimes, and that's also our block to connection or seeing the truth or being brave enough to be vulnerable and all of those things. It's like, you can't really be in that course and not go through that. It's like, it just de-arms you. And I think that's why, the group works so well, because you're connecting on that, like you say, bearing heart and soul level. There is no stuff in the way. It's like and I think it's absolutely incredible on that level, and you've been an amazing part of the group as well. It's been fantastic to have you on board with it. I'm so glad you did it. And I must always, I think there must always have been it must have been quite a big decision for you. If I put myself in your shoes, having the profession that you do and coming from that fundamentalist religious place, in terms of like, you're just waking up and your whole world's like that, and you're waking up feeling different to it, is one thing. But then when actually saying, no, actually, I'm going to consciously invest in that part of myself, and I know that my world isn't going to accept that. That's really quite a huge, courageous, brave decision. And I think you could have easily decided not to do it. Or is that not the case?
Yeah, no, that's very true. And actually, that's probably, if anything, maybe the biggest benefit that I've gotten from the course is that it's kind of propelled me or forced me, to come out of the closet to a certain extent, so to speak, and that's not like I'm standing on the street corner, flashing tarot cards around or anything like that, but it was definitely much more of a secretive type of a thing. And it's a big commitment. I mean, it's a big commitment financially. It's a big commitment time-wise. Most things that are worthwhile, require some sort of a commitment. I'm coaching my daughter's softball team right now, and it's like the ones who are committed, making the effort and those are the ones who bear the fruit. That's, I think, a consistent universal principle. But I think the biggest thing for me is that, being a part of this course, and even though, I mean, there's no, is that it really helped me. It helped me to get the courage and the strength to, essentially, again, express myself for who I am and be who I am, and not be ashamed of it. Whereas before, the tarot cards were stuck away in a drawer and nobody else ever saw them. Now they're on top of my, bookcase in my office, in my home. And it's like, they're there, and I put them out, and they get some interesting looks from time to time, but that's okay. It's part of who I am. And it's interesting is because, as time has gone on, that's gotten to be more accepted. It's like, and other people then see, oh, okay, there's not horns sprouting out of my head, or anything like that, because I'm doing this. And, I'm actually, I think, fulfilling my roles and obligations probably better than I did before. So it's I think it's maybe helped maybe to suppress some of the fears that might be there from family members and stuff around me. So
which is understandable as well. Like there is, I mean, I do get a lot of discrimination. It's not, well, it kind of was. I did have one family member or a couple of family members, which was a bit of a shock when I got married, because the dress code was to come as a tarot card.
mm-hmm.
I thought my family were going to be all right with it, but actually there were a couple of members that weren't, and it was a bit of a shock in that sense. But it feels to me like the more that we kind of repress who we are, or we allow that opinion. I mean, I have it now in my business. There's certain things I can't get because I've got the word tarot in my website. It might be something from the bank, for instance, and it's like you're instantly labeled a con artist, or these dangly earrings should be gypsy hoops and I should have a scarf on. And of course people think tarot and they also think reading. They don't think, oh my goodness, this is a map to my soul, to get to know myself better. And of course that's what Plato and Socrates said was the most important thing in this world, was to do that. The most difficult and the most important. And they also said to try and work out the world without working yourself out first is complete ludicrousy. And I just really come from that school of thought with the tarot. To me, the tarot is not, I mean, yes, you can use it for readings, you can use it for predictions, it does have that element, but it's like 6 sides of a dice, and you're just looking at one by looking at that, and there's so much more to it. And it is that map of spiritual and soul evolution that you seem to have found. And like you say, it's like you've put yourself on the map now, when your tarot cards are out there, and they get a little bit of a look, but people know now who you are. And like you say, they know that you're not kind of growing horns or walking around with a pitchfork or and like you said, you're doing your roles, you're actually fulfilling them a lot better now, because there's space for you, I guess. And when there's space for you to show up as who you are, you can put your whole self in more, can't you?
Yeah, and I think I've earned much more respect through that as well too, for who I am, because I think there's been a testing of that, that authenticity and that desire to try and bring me back into the fishbowl, so to speak. And I think the fortitude, which again the support of the group has helped me with, to say no, that's not who I am, and I'm not going to do that. This is who I am. And you can like it or not like it, that's your choice, but that I'm not going to change that because of you is been an important aspect. And I think that's also, kind of a light to those around me as well too. And I think for all of us, we can be, that's how we are a light. And I think that's part of what your post was, is blossoming where we're planted, is that, that then gives, and how, the universe is going to work with other people in their own time. That's not for me to say, but at least it gives them an illustration to say, look, you don't have to just go along. You can be who you really are. You can make it. And I know, at least even with some of my children, I think it's been very impactful in terms of their being able to see that. I'm really grateful for that. So
that's fantastic. That's really great to hear. Sometimes people go through this course and they have loads of external changes, but they always have the internal ones, and the internal ones aren't always that easy to see if the external ones aren't really there. But I think you've really, you're a shining light, as you've said, in being able to go, what, the change is here on the inside. And the fact that you can do that and everything still be the same on the external side just shows, that it doesn't actually mean that you have to react and just change everything, and they're like, oh my god, everything is wrong. It's like, no, if I can just get to that place of acceptance, then what happens on the outside one way or another happens on the outside one way or another. It's
Right.
a shining example of what this whole thing is about, because when people come for tarot, usually they come because they want to kind of control the external. Will I get that job? Will I get that relationship? Da, 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 da. When really the whole emphasis, the whole reason of the transformational truth of tarot is to get to that place of being comfortable with yourself and the rhythms of what happens in the external world without needing to obsess or try and control. It's coming to that place of self-acceptance and relaxing and being okay and comfortable with that. And you're an absolute shining example on that front, Tim Toma. So thank you so much.
I still have a long way to go on that. I think that's a lifelong journey, but I definitely have come a long way with regards to that. And I think it's taken me a long time to learn, because I think that's what most of us try to do much of our lives, is that if we could change this, if we could change our job, if we could change our partner, we could change our house, if we had more money, that everything would be good. And I still very definitely fall into that mindset, and just having to catch myself is that, no, if I'm focusing on external factors and changing circumstances, that's not going to change anything, because now I'm more in bondage than I was before, because I'm in bondage to those circumstances, and that happiness, that contentment, that joy, that feeling of self-worth has to come from within, regardless of what the external circumstances are. And as I change there, the external circumstances will evolve. Typically, they're not going to be, sometimes there's that tower experience, but I think those are very rare. I think most of the time, it's more like the wheel. It's that transformation. It's that gradual change that happens, that you look back and from, a couple of years ago, it's like, wow, things are really different, but mostly what's different is me, and that's really what I need to focus on.
That's amazing. It's an amazing story. And I love what you say there about, if you're focusing on the external and that changes, and you think that that's where happiness is, but actually it's where the bondage is. It's where you're actually, you're even more attached, to something. And so it's not freedom. It's the absolute opposite of freedom. And it's like you've really gone into activating your own freedom, which is absolutely fantastic. If there's someone out there that this is resonating with, and they're like, oh God, yeah, actually that's what I really need to do, but maybe they just haven't, they don't quite feel like they can do it, maybe it's that they feel that they're, it's going to upset their partner or their family or their work or their life, or there's another reason, and it might be something to do with, again, not having the self-acceptance, because quite often the very reason that stops someone coming on the course is the very reason they should be on it. So for instance, with you, the very reason could have been that, but it was the very reason, that you had to come on it. So what would you say to someone that maybe just hasn't managed to kind of jump off the cliff, as I say it, with the fool's journey? That's what the fool had to start the journey. You have to be the fool and jump off the cliff. I mean, it's a scary thing. What would you say?
Yeah, well, it reminds me of a video I shared once on the private, on the tarot on your site there too, is that these cliff jumpers, and they jump off the cliff. And
that's right.
the scariest part is the jump.
Yeah.
Once you jump, then it's a glorious ride. And you see these guys, they're just sailing, and they see things and experience things that they never would have in their life if they hadn't jumped. But that would have to be incredibly scary. So I know it was an intimidating thing for me as well to take that leap and to take that jump. But quite often, that's where the benefit lies, is getting past that fear. There's two motivators in our life. It's love and fear, and it's which one's going to drive you. And I had to make that decision, and I'm glad I did. And I did that. It's like and were there second thoughts? Sure, there were. It's like, okay, why did I do this? What am I doing? And it's like, okay, so then, but then you just kind of stick with it. You work through that. And you see,
Yeah.
okay, and you trust, and it's trusting that the universe has knows what it's doing and is working in your life. And it's not just a bunch of random stuff, and that it was time to do it. So. That's the biggest thing I think for anybody, is that overcoming that intimidation and that fear. And I think that's a lifelong process. I think we're constantly, battling that. But the more that you do it, like anything else, the better you get at it. And, and sometimes you just got to take that jump. And, you're not going to, it's that simple. You're not going to get the benefits unless you take the jump. It's that simple.
Thank you. That's a perfect way to wrap this up, because I'm going to now put the pink button underneath this interview. It's going to say, got to take that jump, or take that jump. So if you're like, yeah, I'm going to take that jump, just press that pink button there. It's so much better than just saying apply here, isn't it? Take that jump.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's always great to connect with you, Tim. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life and structure. I know that you are a very busy guy, and I really appreciate you being who you are and sharing that with us today.
Well, it was my pleasure. I'm glad I could share a little bit, and I hope that it'll be some help and encouragement to somebody else who could benefit from your leadership, or your example, and your teaching and your mentorship. It really is something I think that's rare out there. I don't think there's many opportunities out there that are similar to what you provide through your program and through this course.
I haven't come across it yet, so I'm there with you.
I'm certainly not aware of anything else. So
Well, there we go. That's what it's about. It's about coming into the truth of who you are and your uniqueness, and that's really what it comes down to at the end. It might say the word tarot in it, and it does have tarot in it, but those are just mirrors of the soul to help you to get to know thyself better. And do take that jump. Just press that pink button below. And for now, it's bye from Mystic here, and me, and from Tim. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.